Well, good morning and welcome back to another episode of Memories of Margaret, where the life and legacy of Margaret Curl will be shared through stories of her love for Christ and all people. I'm your host, Martha Sue French. I am also the youngest of 6 children of Howard and Margaret Curl. Whew. Now, in today's episode, I will continue to share more of Mama's poetry as well as entries from her diary, like I promised. Now, I went through it. I made a list of, interesting entries for 5 years. And I'm not going to read all of them, but just know that this episode will likely be a little longer than the norm when we don't have a guest. Now, again, these entries were made prior, years prior to her marrying Daddy and having children. But Mama was a player, y'all. So, with so much to unpack, there will be 2 episodes surrounding Mama's diary. So, today's episode, hold on, is entitled, The Men of Margaret, Part 1. Subtitle, Area Codes. I do not own the rights to this music, but just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what's coming up. The poem for today is entitled Step by Step, and that's featured in the poetry book On Speaking Terms with God. Again, all of Mama's poetry books are available on Amazon.com. Just type in Margaret Curl and they should come up. Okay, now back to the story. I never realized until going through Mama's diary that she was, very popular and very active young woman. So though she was raised as an only child, she had a very rich and robust social calendar. So in addition to being in Upton and the church activities that went on there, and in the surrounding towns, she also traveled to Louisville, where she had family, and to Fort Wayne, Indiana, where her mother, Grandma Mabel Buggs, lived. Now, it appears she had local suitors, as well as some she met in Louisville, Fort Wayne, and through church. Because Fort Knox was an army base and it was pretty close to Upton. So most of these were soldiers. And Mama seemed to have a thing for military men. It wasn't just army, but Mama seemed to have a thing for military men. You will see as we progress. Now, the funny thing is, I remember some of these men when I was growing up, but I never knew they tried to push up on Mama. Okay. I need to get it together because, again, Mama would have been 100 years old this year. Some of these entries are over 80 years old. I just need to let it go. But I had to unpack a whole lot going through this. So, disclaimer, I'm not saying that all the people she wrote to were anything more than friends, but you can tell by the entries which ones were. Now, some I really couldn't tell. I just know they were mentioned several times. Also, I'm going to read some entries that I thought were just interesting, especially for the time period that has nothing to do with men or suitors. So buckle up, people. Here's today's poem. Again, it's called Step by Step, and then we'll jump into The Men of Margaret, Part 1, 1942 through June of 1944. So here's the poem, Step by Step. One never knows what ahead in life, if it will be peaceful or if there will be strife. Whatever is ahead, only God can know, and it is good that He fixed it so. We do not need to know what our lives will be, but only lean on Him, knowing well that He will see us through it each and every day, if we will only let Him lead the way. Step by step He'll go, in future as in past. And when our lives are over, we'll know it all at last. Step by Step by Margaret Naomi Curl. Okay, now getting back to today's episode, I took some notes on notepads, but what I'm going to start with is I'm going to just start with the names that were mentioned. Then in the end, I'll share some of the photos with you. Again, not defining the roles of these people, but I'm just reading the names, and then we'll just kind of fill in the blanks as we go. Now, this is for both episodes. This is for throughout the entire 5-year period, but I'm just reading some of the names. J.C. Stevens, you will hear his name a lot. Roy Jones, Val Poole, Private Joseph Walker, Charles Bransford, Junior Davis, Bobby. I don't have Bobby's last name, but I believe he was from Fort Wayne, and I believe Bobby and Bob are going to be interchangeable. Fred Littlejohn, Grant Briggs, he's in here a lot too. Harvey Shipp, Virgil Miller, Walter Jeff, Jimmy Blevins, Private Jeff Malcolm, who was a friend of Harvey Shipp's, Vullius Nevitt, William Dixon, Jim Curry, Robert Henry, Howard Curl. So Daddy made the cut, but he was really friend zoned, as you will see most of this diary. But anyway, he was friend zoned until afterwards. Gilbert Woodson, Jim Buckner, Pete Curry, Albert Stewart, who was Catherine Cleaver's cousin, who was Aunt Catherine, Catherine Owens, Sheila Owens and Bobby Owens' mother. Anyway, it was Albert Stewart was Catherine Cleaver's cousin. George Coward Jr., Herbert Willis, Alan Curry, and Junior Stewart. So those are just a list of the names that you're gonna hear about. Okay. So now I'm gonna start reading some of the entries. And again, I'm beginning in 1942. Remember, Mama was 17 years old at the beginning. She turned 18 in June of 1942. But the first thing that pops off is, well, not the very first thing. I just thought this was interesting that on January 24th, 1942, she sold 4 dish towels and she earned 60 cents. That was 15 cents a towel. She began on her blouse. I didn't even know Mama could sew. Now, on February the 6th, that's what I'm saying. Now, this is the first one she received a card from J.C. Stevens. Again, J.C. is up in this diary a whole lot. But anyway, she received a card from J.C. Stevens. And I believe J.C. was from Fort Wayne, Indiana. She received 2 Valentines and a letter from Mother, which was Grandma. On February the 16th, 1942, she received a Valentine from J.C. Stevens. In March, she received letters from Another Mama and Roy Jones. Remember, that was a name that was mentioned. And Roy sent his picture. I don't have a picture of him, but he sent it to her back in 1942. I just thought this was interesting, too. On March 27th, 1942, Joe Louis knocked out Abe Simon tonight, his 21st title defense. She received a letter from Roy Jones on April 1st. On April 2nd, she saw Val Poole on the bus for the second time. And on the 6th, Val was on the bus this afternoon and he treated her to a Coke. I don't know who Val Poole is, but anyway. Now, on April the 13th, she received a card from Roy, and he's been in a wreck. and he was in his hometown of Crocus. I'm not sure where that is. On the 15th, she saw H.B. Foster on the bus for a second time. On April the 28th, she met Miss Carrie Wood this morning on the bus. And she was on the bus this afternoon too, and so was Val Poole. And he promised to come down Saturday night. On May the 2nd, she received a letter from Roy Jones. And I just thought this was interesting. On May the 4th, 1942, sugar rationing for families begins. This entry for May the 6th is funny because she received a letter from Private Joseph Walker, but Mama told me not to answer it. Okay. And some of these I had read before when I read the 2 weeks leading up to her graduation. So I won't go through all of those. I'll just go through the one, of course, that is where she received a lovely locket from JC. And that was on May the 28th of 1942. June 10th, she says, my birthday, 18 years old. She received letters from Mother and JC Stevens. And on June 24th, 1942, a train killed Mr. Mac Moore this morning. And I thought that was interesting because on the 25th, she went to Mr. Mac's funeral at Glendale, and she read her poem, Conversion, that she wrote. And that poem, Conversion, is in her poetry book, From My Heart to Yours. Now, again, she had just turned 18 years old, and she wrote this poem, and the family wanted her to read that poem at Mr. Mac Moore's funeral. On July 27th, she received another letter from JC. Back a week before that, on the 18th, she met Roy's sister. On July 29th, which was my birthday, but years before I was even thought of, she saw Charles Bransford this afternoon on the bus, and he may stop by on Monday. And then on August 3rd, she said, Charles didn't show up. I just thought this was interesting because they didn't even write these things. On August 14th, she put Clementine is GTHAB, poor kid. So I had to figure it out. GTHAB, going to have a baby. She said, I pity her even if she did know better. August 27th, she received a letter from JC, and he is sending her Gone with the Wind. But on September the 3rd, it just kind of shows her humor. JC's Gone with the Wind hasn't come yet, and it's a week since he said it was on the way. It must be Gone with the Wind, sure enough. That just shows Mama's humor. And I'm just kind of going through on October the 14th, it says Mr. John Dixon has a job with the road building, with the road building gang. So it must have been good that he got on to that road crew back in 1942. And then on November the 1st, Junior Hill of Fort Bragg is in town. It said that she received a letter from JC on November the 12th, and he wants to pay a visit for Thanksgiving. And then she puts, would like to see him, with 2 exclamation points. And this is the, I guess, the interesting part of the, entertainment for the area. Mr. John Dixon, the same one that got the job on the road building gang, got a drink under his belt, got rambunctious with a gun, and the sheriff came and took him to jail. What a town. And she put that with the exclamation point. She received a letter from Junior Davis. We called him Uncle Jude. I remember him from when I was growing up. He regrets that matter of January 22nd, he says. December the 7th, it's been 1 year since the Pearl Harbor attack. December the 9th, received a letter from JC. And then on December 22nd, Sis Hanley is GTHAB, so going to have a baby. December 23rd, she received a letter from Junior Davis. And she sold Mrs. Skaggs, and I take that to mean Dora Skaggs, which was Daddy's grandmother. She sold her one pillowcase. December 24th, she received packages from JC and Uncle Pete. And December 31st, she received a letter from JC, goodbye 1942. 1943, JC leaves for induction into the Army today on January 1st. January the 3rd, Junior walked from church with me. A week later, on January 10th, Junior walked from church with me. January 15th, note from Junior Davis. Letters from Mother and JC. JC is now Private Stevens of Kessler Field, Mississippi. Now, she got a letter from JC on January 28th. Now she went to Fort Wayne for, it looks like it's probably around a month, and spent some time with Grandma. So on February the 3rd, she went to a show with Wilma. I don't know who Wilma is, but Clark Gable was in it. Somewhere I'll Find You is the name of it. Mother went to beauty shop and she saw Raymond Chambers. February the 9th, 1943, Bobby was here tonight. And the next day on the 10th, Anna Mae and Bobby were here tonight. She got a letter from JC. Now, the 13th, she went to the show with Bobby, the major and the minor. Now, 4 days later, here he come back again. Bobby was here. Now, on the 18th, she received a letter from JC. He wants to phone her sometimes. Now, on the 19th, here come Bobby again. She went to the show with Bobby, Random Harvest, talking about good. She sent JC a package on February 25th. On the 26th, it says Daddy Zeke, who is Ezekiel Bugs, that's who Grandma ended up marrying. Bobby and Fred have all been here. So Fred must be Fred Littlejohn that was listed, and we'll talk about him later too. And on March 1st, 1943, she says tomorrow is JC's birthday. So she left Fort Wayne. She came back, to Kentucky. And so, there's some other things in here. So now I'm going to jump to March the 18th of 1943. She had letters from JC and Fred Littlejohn. She put Bertha Masden here this PM. That was Bertha Rush, Miss Rush, and Miss Dora tonight. Again, that's Daddy's grandmother, Miss Dora Skaggs. Working on down through the, through the months. On April 17th, 1943, she received a short letter from JC with an Army Air Corps insignia, arm insignia. Also a lovely sweetheart pillowcase from him. Okay. April 29th, Bobby leaves for the Army Saturday. Going down to May the 16th, 1943. Mother and Daddy Zeke married today. Bob is in Camp Stewart, Georgia. And she went to see Mr. Curl. He's very thin and was restless. So again, some of these people, even though it was Curl, I don't know who Mr. Curl was exactly. I was asking Anne about this, but there's so many different moving parts and people and actually family that I don't know. I may need to get on Ancestry to try to find out some of my roots because I don't know who some of these people were, but I know they had to be related. Okay, getting back to this, on May the 18th, she had bad luck today. She lost 15 cents worth of 3-cent stamps. She put, woe is me. Now, here's the entry of Grant Briggs. So on May the 19th, she received a letter from Grant Briggs. He's in the hospital. He didn't say what for. On May the 22nd, Junior Davis treated Jean and I to ice cream this AM. And then John Dixon treated Ola May and I to pop this PM. Lucky gal me. May 27th, she received a letter from Bobby. Going down because I'm going to try to get this going quicker. She received a letter from Lorraine, which was Lorraine McDougal, cousin Lorraine. Also, my enlarged photo of JC from Hollywood Studios. She received a letter from Bob. He's a private first class now at Army Midland Radio School in Kansas City. She received another letter from Fred. She received a picture from Bob. And then she put, it's a fine picture. Okay, mother. She received a letter from Jimmy Blevins. She saw Mrs. Hattie Dixon on July 27th, 1943, and William is in the Navy. August 20th, 1943, she received 2 letters from JC, also a USAC pin from him. And she put, he's got it bad. And then in parentheses, she put me too with the exclamation point. Okay. So there was other letters from all these other people, Grant, JC, something. Grant, September the 10th, received a lovely bracelet, Army Air Wings from JC. So JC is buttering up mama, sending her all this stuff. We got 2 letters from JC, another JC sent his picture, a letter from Fred, a letter from Julius Nevitt, letter from Fred. He's so lonesome, he says. Let's see. Christmas card from Grant, letters from, JC, blah, 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 blah. We're getting down to Christmas time, 1943. Letter from Fred, letter from Bob, letter from JC. Farewell, 1943. So now I'm just going to do to the half of 1944. So you remember I had mentioned to Charles Bransford early on, and he saw him on the bus and think he'd bought her a Coke. But she saw in the Courier Journal, this is on January 1st, 1944, that Charles Bransford was missing in the Pacific. And the Bransfords later received word that he was dead. So, so sorry to hear that. January 6th, 1944, she received letters from JC and Grant. Now, right now, if we were in the Kentucky Derby, those two are running neck and neck. They contacted her more than anybody. JC and Grant. Let's go down here. On February 12th, 1944, she got a Valentine from Junior Davis. A letter from Robert Henry. He's a first-class private now. And letters from Sergeant Julius Nevitt and Junior Davis of all persons. He's up to his tricks again. This time I don't bite. Good for you. Then she put February 20th, 1944. Howard is now in, but I couldn't read the rest of it. But she mentioned Daddy, so Howard. That's the first time I've heard of him. February the 20th of 1944. She got a letter from Grant saying he was in France, okay? I don't even know how to say it, but it says, I love you in French. J'aimerais avec vous, something. Whatever, Grant. Yeah, let me stop because it's been over 80 years ago. Letter from Robert Henry, letter from Gilbert. So this is a thing on Saturday, April the 8th, 1944. It says, tomorrow we have all-day service at church and entertain 25 Fort Knox soldiers if they come. And then on Sunday, the 9th, attended services today. There were 39 soldiers present. So again, I think that's where some of these friendships happened, was because when the men were stationed that came to the church, she would meet him through there. She got a letter from William Davis. He's somewhere in, I'm sorry, William Dixon. He's somewhere in Central Pacific. Going on and on. Junior Davis was here tonight. That's on April 30th, 1944. May the 4th, letters from Bob and Gilbert. Bob is a sergeant now. Gilbert was practically proposing, smiles. And again, this is Gilbert Whitson. I remember him, and I remember his wife, Miss Ola May. As a matter of fact, I believe someone said that Mr. Gilbert Whitson is still living, and he's like 100 years old, which is about what Mama would be. So yeah, he would be about that age. She got a letter from Fred. He's now a corporal. May 21st, 1944, Junior was over tonight, and she had a letter from Bob. May the 22nd, she had letters from Grant and Gilbert. May 31st, 1944, she received a shell necklace and some pretty shells from Grant. The necklace is very pretty too. She's June the 10th, 1944. She put 20 years old today. I can't believe it. On June the 11th, 1944, letter from Grant, but then Howard and Junior were here tonight. Howard has to be Daddy, and that was on his birthday. And then on June the 18th, she put, Howard was my swain today. I don't know what swain means, but I'm thinking swoon. I'm thinking she was kind of liking Daddy then, back in 1944. But again, they didn't get married until 1950, so I don't know why it took 6 years, but anyway. Letter from Grant and Junior Williams. Letter from Jake. Letter from Fred. Letter from Jake. Letter from Jim Buckner. So that's all. So that's in mid-1944. So that's where I'm going to stop today, part 1. But again, you can see there was a lot going on. And I did not read every entry. But we were introduced to JC. We were introduced to Grant Briggs. We were introduced to Charles Bransford. And unfortunately, he was later found deceased over in the Pacific. Val Poole, Roy Jones, Junior Davis, Bob or Bobby, the one she went to the movies with twice. Harvey Shipp, again, Grant Briggs, we talked about him. So now I'm going to show some pictures of some of these men I was talking about, and then we're just going to wrap it up, okay? So let me share this. Okay, folks. This is, look, Mr. James C. Stevens. This is JC. A little bigger. Part 2, I have another picture of him because I guess he's trying to impress her. But anyway, this is JC Stevens. I believe I showed this picture before. This is Mama here. And she is in front of the church at Walnut Hill Baptist Church in Upton. But I'm showing this picture because here is Miss Dora Skaggs, which is my father's grandmother that raised him. But here is Junior Davis. That's, what we call him, Uncle June, Cousin June, whatever. But I never knew that he tried to talk to Mama. Anyway, that's Junior Davis. Wanted to show that suitor. Look, as ever, Fred. So this is Fred Littlejohn. And I believe she met him when she was in Fort Wayne, because I believe he's from Fort Wayne, Indiana. This is Harvey Shipp, cousin Harvey. And this is the friend, I don't think his name is on there, but he's listed that where he sent his picture with a friend of his. This, I don't know why he looks, This man looks short, but anyway, this is PFC James Curry. It says, love James. So we're related to a lot of Currys. So I don't know if this is a Curry we're related to or if it's a Curry we're not. But anyway, this is James Curry. Oh, it's funny because this is a movie actor, Sabu Dastagir. And there was an entry. Oh, I missed that one. Oh, here it is. The very last entry. It was in July 18th, 1944. She put received military map and postcard picture of Sabu. And is he cute? Exclamation point, question mark. Whew, she put with 2 exclamation points. What a smile with 2 exclamation points. Calm down, Margaret, calm down. Anyway, that's her picture of Sabu, but he was a movie actor. And this is cousin Jim Brooks. This is Reverend John Brooks's brother, and he was in the Army. He wrote to Mama a lot. I know that he was not one of her suitors or anything, because he was cousin John Brooks, but this is a picture of John Brooks. Now, I had to put this one in here because ultimately that pipe got him, and I believe Jeremy said his nickname was Knife. That's Howard Curl right here, and Knife ended up, beating them all at the end, but that's Daddy, and this is his grandfather, Scott Skaggs. So that is all the pictures today. I know it went a little bit longer, but I just found her diary fascinating. And there is a part 2, but I'll tell you that that's all for today. So thank you again for tuning in. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to Memories of Margaret on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. And don't forget to tune in every other Tuesday at 8 a.m. for more poetry and stories. Now, in the next episode, we'll have a special guest, my brother Billy Curl, or Reverend William Curl, to share his memories of Margaret. Now, the episode after that, which will be episode 13, will resume with the Men of Margaret Part 2. And I will share the subtitle to that one then. But that's going to be from mid-July from July 1944 through the end of 1946. So remember, if you would like to be a guest on a future episode, please leave a message on the Facebook page, Memories of Margaret, or send me an email to memoriesofmargaretnaomi@gmail.com. Now, don't forget, go out and make memories with your family. Thank you.